Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Talk. Again, John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's Pro 14 semi-final victory against Munster, Ulster's defeat against Glasgow, and of course look forward to the big final in Glasgow next weekend. So lads, 24-9 against Munster. Cracking atmosphere.
Yeah, cracking atmosphere. What seldom is wonderful, we don't play Munster all that often in the RDS. Mm-hmm. So it's become a bit of an event, more of an event indeed than the game in the Aviva it really is now, because that's kind of, we play that every year, and of course it's a knockout game, so it's really, it's a significantly important match. It helps that we played pretty well to get over the line. Munster were resolute, they were as brave as they always were, but ultimately they didn't. They were loaded with blanks.
Yeah, they seem to be, and their selection at back row didn't seem to work out. It was you that said, Dave, that they've gone full South African and they've picked they put number 6 on the back of their open side and number 7 on the back of their blind side, but they actually didn't. They had CJ packing down at open side, which left him a little bit short of pace when if he wanted to cripple an out half, for example, off a scrum, he'd probably want to,
a specialist,
Linford Christie, to carry him over to do it. But it was a back row. Maybe they looked at the Saracens game and thought, these guys need to be smashed. We'll put on 3 back row players that can smash. But you would have thought that O'Mahony would have been a better 7 if you're going to swap them around in that fashion. That you could have put O'Mahony packing down at 7 because he had the extra bit of pace and whatever, and he can still do all these good stuff in the line out. But CJ, you're always saying, Dave, CJ is a natural blindside. That's where he should be.
That's what I believe. I believe he's a world class, or has the potential to be a world class number 6. I think he does all right at number 8 because he's such a good footballer, and he tried his best at number 7. But he was completely off the pace because he's not a number 7.
But then Josh van der Fleer had a magnificent game.
Yeah, but he had a free hand as well. It has to be said. I mean, Josh, that's the difference between a world.
But you could see him working so hard at the break. Nothing to do with where CJ was or wasn't. Like, he was forcing turnovers. You saw him. He won 2 or 3 turnovers that he had no right to win.
Oh, absolutely.
He was getting smashed at the same time.
If he had have played against Saracens, I'm not saying it would have changed the result, but might have made it a bit more.
It might have changed the outcome, but it might have changed the score, kind of thing. No, you're right. I mean, I don't want to do down Josh. I think he is going to be a world class 7, but there's a difference between picking a specialist like Josh and an occasional venturer like CJ, and that's what it happens it's happened. I mean, I often say after Leinster Munster games that their back row wasn't really a factor, and it wasn't really a factor.
I'd love to know how many matches since, let's go back to the match in Croke Park that they've won. And I'm just taking a guess here. I'd say you count them on one hand of the possibly 20 matches we've played.
Yes, since Croke Park there's been a huge turnaround, all right. I mean, it really has. But the whole thing is flipped on its head.
But like in the match on the weekend, like, even though we were down, we were just up at half time, we went in 9-6. I didn't for once, I wasn't concerned. They had a lot of possession. They just have no guile. Like, they've got 2 big blokes in the middle of the centres who do nothing else except run the ball straight. They create zero, and as a result, you've got a fine winger like Earls and another one like Conway, just getting dead ball.
Yeah, well, that's the. I mean, they have one of the best wingers in Europe in Keith Earls, and they didn't use him. I mean, he was completely. Underemployed.
But the ball dies once it goes out of the outhalf's hands.
They only made one line break that I can remember anyway, with when Byrne cut a good line, and that was a forward.
Yeah.
So there are issues. I don't know whether that's because we've seen Chris Farrell play and he can be creative. We've seen him play for Ireland and be very, very good for Ireland.
For sure.
So you'd have to wonder:
is it the coach?
Is it a coaching thing? Is it a way that he wants to play? Does he want to play further out or closer in or whatever? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I mean, like you were saying, I was very nervous before the match because it's a knockout match. It's a derby. Anything can happen. I was very nervous before the match. But as the match went on, I was less and less nervous. And by half time, like yourself, I was completely sanguine because, I was certain we were going to win. But and then we scored that great try, obviously, when
But like even I'm just thinking of say the break that Ringrose took, and he did a beautiful arc around there. He kind of had a 2-on-1, and he got caught. I think scrum half McGrath was just out to his right, but he didn't use him, and he took the tackle. But like you just would not see a Munster centre do that. You know, they just don't have the skill set or perhaps even the base.
Well, maybe that's one of the reasons why they're making changes in that area.
I saw Chris Farrell coming in at angles on ball. He never actually caught the ball, or if he did, he got smashed. But he's trying to. They were trying to get him running at angles in the centre off Rory Scannell, and you know, getting in at pace. And a big guy like that gets the ball at pace at the right time. But he never got the ball at the right time, or he got it, and there was a guy on top of him at the same time. You know, so they were kind of trying things like where they obviously had a move lined up where he was running over in front of the forwards, or he was running over, you know, in front of whoever to create, you know, whoever knew what was going on to create something. But fortunately for us, it never worked out.
But like we had, sorry, just in addition to that, we had huge pace off our defensive line. Sometimes the Leinster defence can be a bit sulky.
Yeah.
But we were coming up very, very hard, very, very fast.
So were they.
So it's not something we normally do. So if you've got a situation where a back line might be less than confident in its passing ability or passing setup, combined with a hard defence, is going to put them into trouble. I mean, they can come up hard on us. I mean, we saw it happen a couple of times. We just put little dink balls inside and guys cut lines. Mm-hmm. They don't do that. For whatever reason, they don't do that.
But they, just going back, I don't want to be too much on them. We should be
focusing on
focusing us. But just one thing about Munster. Like, that was their second knockout game in the Pro 14, and there was a couple of weeks difference between them. But they didn't score a try in either game.
And didn't look particularly impressive in either game either.
And, like, you're going to have to say, like, if you can't score a try against Treviso at home, do you know what I mean? Like, whatever about coming to the RDS and being held just to penalties, that's fine. But, jeez, if you can't score a try against Treviso in your own ground in a knockout match.
Yeah, that is a bit of an indictment, despite the fact that Treviso are
they're a good side.
bloody good side now, yeah.
But, like, you know, the proof will be in the pudding next season when we see, like, you know, in all honesty, are Treviso going to get out of their group next year in the European Cup? You know, it's unlikely. It's unlikely.
Any team who's there on merit for the first time, you'd have to say it's unlikely. I mean, look at how well Glasgow play and how they get smashed every year in Europe.
Sure. So it's hard. It's hard.
It's a hard competition.
So, like, you know, but Treviso aren't world beaters. Like, there's a reason that they finish, you know, down the pecking order in the conferences.
You never know. We have a cold summer, and they sell enough sweaters. You never know who might be playing for them next year.
You never know. Well, I know you have the tries, Dave. So, like, there was two magnificent tries that we scored.
This one was it was great from start to finish. Everything about it was good. You know, it's something we haven't really done a lot in recent games. Is maul. It's something we haven't tried.
That was pretty decent.
That was a pretty decent one.
They went back to it a few times in this game.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
they kind of almost tried to eke out that penno.
Yeah.
Like, look, they've driven them 10 metres there.
Nice pass, Ross Byrne. Woo! And then Mr. Lowe.
Who was just
sublime.
Box office.
Pure box office.
And tell you, Conan was also absolutely.
He was also very good, yeah. He hasn't had a bad game in a long time, Jack Conan, has he? Well, bad. Mediocre game.
Third involvement
yeah.
And this is just pure filth.
And this reminds me of the COS front row.
Was that in a parallel universe, Jason? It's a lovely move, isn't it? 1-3-2. And over.
But just the way they just catch, commit, and pass.
Like, and Healy straightened it and everything. You know,
had everything.
And poor old Joey Carberry was in no man's land for that. As we'll probably see in the replay.
See this, lads. It's the world's smallest violin player.
I wonder if he's thinking, what did I do?
Well, I was thinking, when I was looking at him making a few breaks early on in the game, I was thinking, with all the players we have going around the other provinces, it's only a matter of time before Jack McGrath, Jordy Murphy, Joey Carberry, somebody scores.
Geez, England's Mike Halley did not have a good day against James Lowe, did he?
No.
Somebody scores against us in a knockout game and it decides
In fairness, he was left in his own out there.
Yeah.
So he was. I mean, he didn't have. There wasn't a whole lot he could have done. Unless the players actually screwed it up. Our players screwed it up. He had no chance. In fairness to him.
And they had the heavy
Have a
horses
look at the
going
second
backwards.
try. If you're slagging off Mike Halley,
Oh,
Good in the air though.
He slag off Mike Halley.
It must be
England's
his.
Mike Halley.
It must be his GAA background that he had in wherever he was, because he is very good in the air. That was just.
He's just a bit shit in the ground.
That was just lovely.
just before that, James Lowe had a go with Conway.
That was before the first try.
Was it before the first try? Yeah.
No, it was before that. No, you're right. You're right. Sorry, you're right.
And he drives it. He has a few burbles, and then the play continues on. He drives in, makes a tackle, or clears out a ruck.
No, clatters a guy in the tackle.
And
Has a
kind
few
of
more
looks.
verbals.
He kind of looks over to Conway and says, "That's how you do it, mate."
You see, I think Munster's defensive alignment was there on purpose because they didn't want James Lowe, who's a very big guy, running at Conway, who isn't. So they moved England's Mike Halley out there.
Well, England's Mike Halley didn't do a great job,
No,
and
he didn't,
Farrell
no,
was
no.
too far away to get him, even though Farrell is a huge unit. But Lowe just knows where the try line is, and he knows how to keep his feet out of touch
He
as
was a
well.
little bit
He's awesome.
uncommitted, you could say, to that tackle, didn't he?
Halley, yeah.
Halley, yeah.
No, Farrell.
Farrell.
He
I'd tell
went
you,
extremely
I
high.
think
Look,
Lowe had the step on it.
I think it was like, look
I
at
just
the
think he
time.
didn't make it there.
Look at the
yeah.
time on the clock. I don't really. This game is over.
Well, there was a lot of criticism, and I didn't see it, and I didn't notice it when I watched it again, but apparently it happened that when Johnny Sexton was lining up his conversion, Mike Halley was
Walked off.
walking off like.
I heard that on. I watched the rerun on Air Sport.
Yeah. If any of your kids did that when you were in your train, you'd be hopping mad with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's something else you were saying about us going for the try in injury time, and how it was a bit like Saracens. But
Yeah.
in fairness, it was a no lose scenario because they were too far behind, even if they intercepted. So you might as well go for a try. You know, there was nothing to lose, including the game.
But it was a very. I mean, just focusing on our own performance, it was a very good performance. I mean, scrum was a bit open to referees' intention.
And when once again when the reserves came on, we were shunted back.
Something I saw.
when the reserves came on, though,
I think we got better actually.
I think we got better. We
We
got
went
on top
back
of
in
it.
the first scrum. If you look at it again, we went
Something
back.
I was watching, right, because Kilcoyne is famous for
Oh, he was.
getting his arse parallel
Oh,
with
yeah.
the touchline when he's scrummaging. I actually noticed, perpendicular. I actually noticed that when CJ was on his side of the scrum, he was holding him in. He was actually scrummaging straight on that side. And, you know, he did win a few penalties. He did. Whether he was doing tag furlong or whether the referee was missing something.
If you watch the scrums,
qualified enough
if
to
you
say.
watch the scrums that they get a nudge on in, they're all ones where the ref is on their tight
There-
end
oh,
side.
yeah.
Yeah, they're just wheeling it.
So you reckon their tight head was pulling it?
Possibly,
make it go
possibly.
forward.
But more importantly, their loose head was driving it.
Yeah, but that's what they're there
Like
for.
at one point,
So-
Keane Healy just stands up and looks at the ref and goes, "I can't do anything about this,"
Yeah.
and he penalised us for that. Actually,
Sometimes, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I don't know if you played for front row, but I did. And as far as I'm concerned, what's legal is what I can get away with. If my arse is facing their second row, I don't care if I can get away with it, and it gets us an advantage. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, that's
That's
how
true.
scrummaging goes.
That's true. And sure,
So,
look at Peter
I mean-
O'Mahony binding
Yeah,
on the
I'm
props.
not-
He
I
stopped
mean-
doing that. Have you noticed?
Yeah. We might complain about it in an analysis perspective, but you know, it's what you do.
yeah. But like, just going back to the game, I thought, you know, there was certain moments in the game, like we said about just coming up to the half time and taking those points and going in. You know, I think it was 5 or 6 minutes into the red. But there was one noticeable thing, like when James Lowe was in the bin, and it
We
was 10
managed
minutes.
that well.
It was 3-all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they had Scannell in the bin, I think it was 10-3. So, do you know what I mean? Like, it's those things that,
Yeah.
as you say, it's managing.
It's exactly a mirror of what happened against Saracens the previous week, the previous week. So they did a similar thing on us. Like they had a man in the bin, we didn't cope as well, and we had a man in the bin. They coped quite well. So there are lots of parallels between the two games.
Yeah.
We're Saracens this week, or they're Leinster. I don't know which is.
I believe that
more
was
appropriate.
I believe James Lowe's try was our 130th of the season.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was, yeah.
it's incredible, isn't it?
That's some gun. Turning our attention now just briefly to our opponents who we're going to face over in Scotland next weekend. Glasgow put 50 points on Ulster. I watched that match on Friday night. They really started off with some intent. Like I think what's his name? Seymour got over within 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And like they added another 5 tries onto their tally. Like they looked that they just came out here going to blitz Ulster. But Ulster didn't seem to put any.
Didn't seem to care.
Ulster never fired a shot. They were
Not
very
one
disappointed.
shot. Even though they scored 3 tries, they just never once looked like they were going to come back into
No,
the game.
never did.
And you would have thought, like with Rory Best's last game, that he would have. That you would have thought with Rory Best's last game that he would have. They would have put in a massive effort for him.
Yeah, I would have thought so as well. I was very surprised at the lack of, for want of a better phrase, with the lack of urgency in the Ulster team. Glasgow were much more up for it, had their game plan, went to it, and absolutely cut Ulster apart. So, I mean, Ulster got a few late scores to make the thing look semi-respectable. Well, it's not respectable, but to put a better shade on it. But they were hammered out the door.
Like 50 points to 20. You only need a few more tries to make that look respectable.
Not respectable, but to put it.
Yeah, I know.
They were hammered out the door.
Yeah.
I mean, they really, really were.
But some of the Scottish lads, they looked very impressive, didn't they?
They did, yeah. No, I they look like a team that have a goal in mind, and that goal is to win the Pro 14.
Well, like us last season, when you have a final in your hometown, in the bigger stadium up the road, you want to get there. Like, I mean, it's probably the first time that clearly there's a rugby match in Parkhead, and I'm sure if Glasgow want to play there, I know the Sevens was there, wasn't it actually?
I don't know about no
Sevens was in Ibrox.
Sevens was in Ibrox. The only previous rugby match in Parkhead or in Celtic Park was in 1909, and it was rugby league.
Okay.
It was Northern Union against. It might have been Australia. I'm not sure.
Right.
But
Dave does his research.
So that was
Starting
the only
day.
previous
Okay.
match.
So, but I'm sure that anyone would be like, it's their equivalent of playing in the bigger stadium, whether it's the Aviva or Croke Park in Dublin. They want to be in it. The home side wants to play.
It's a great opportunity for Glasgow Warriors and for rugby in Glasgow. I mean, there's a lot of rugby in Glasgow. It gets overshadowed by football, obviously, because football's the overbearing concern of more Scots than rugby is. But it's a great opportunity for rugby in Glasgow, not just Glasgow Warriors, to show itself in a positive light, to get the game out there to people, get a few casual supporters in who might not have seen a professional rugby match before or a professional club game before. So it's a huge opportunity, and then they've got fairly famous surroundings to do it in. So yeah, there's huge opportunities there.
There's 30,000 tickets sold for it, apparently.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is pretty good. Now I heard that the sales aren't great from Leinster's point of view, but I presume it's a bridge too far for. I mean, it's
Battle fatigue, Jason.
Wallet fatigue, John.
Exactly. Like, I mean,
That too.
like these matches, these extra semi-finals in the Pro 14 and a final for the Champions Cup semi-final, like it just adds into already expensive. You're paying for season tickets, you're staying for the odd international or autumn international tickets, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of expense to come out, extra expense that adding onto your season.
30,000 is a really good crowd. Even say if only 30,000 show up, that's still a really good crowd for a Pro 14 final. I mean, it is 30,000. People say about the Pro 14, they're not good. Okay, for when you consider that there are two fairly small countries been represented in the final, it'll only half fill Parkhead, which is unfortunate. But it does. That has to be seen in context of 30,000 people going to a rugby match. So I think I wouldn't have an issue with it. I think more would show up. I mean,
I hope so.
The take up from the Leinster allocation has been great, but Leinster fans tend to buy their Pro 14 final tickets fairly early on in the season. There was a Black Thursday or Black Friday sale as well. A lot of people got tickets for a tenner or whatever in that. So
Yeah. So this is going to be our 8th final out of a possible 10 finals.
What?
Well, let's start this with the voice from the
The other side of the fence.
From the other side of the fence. And well, we've two actually. We've two.
Shelbyville getting in on the act.
No, Glasgow.
Oh, Glasgow. Okay.
Our friend Murdo gets in touch. He says he's really excited about this game. It's in his home city, which is a rugby first, and in a football mad city. Also, best two teams got to the final deservedly as well. With you guys the more powerful and experienced team, and no doubt desperate to win after the Smarties lost, I presume you mean Saracens lost, and I therefore suggest our probable favourites. The bookies have us 3 or 4 points favourites, I think. And with us arguably the more exciting of the two teams, and are more confident with momentum, the two styles will be pitted against each other hopefully in front of 40,000 plus crowd in Leo's paradise with his fellow fans or selves, depending on which way you want to look at it. Seriously, I think it'll be a great game and a tremendous occasion. And then he asks, so which team will get to wear their home tops? What is the estimated numbers travelling over, and who is going to win? So,
well, as Mike Tyson famously said, like you were saying about Glasgow having a plan to go out and blitz Ulster, you know, Mike Tyson once said, everybody's got a plan until they get hit points in the face. So I think Glasgow might suffer from that this weekend. Not saying they're not going to win, but I'm just saying they might not be expecting the punch in the face they're going to get.
The one thing about Glasgow is they've experienced the difference between Pro 14 Leinster and
Heineken Cup Leinster.
Cup Leinster.
They know what's coming
before, because it happened to them 2 seasons ago.
Yeah,
and they got absolutely
pants pulled down. We got a late bonus point against
that they didn't expect.
And then 2 weeks later, we went over in the league
and
lost.
Yeah. So I think they'll be ready for. They won't be expecting the Pro 14 Leinster. They'll be expecting European finals Leinster. So that's one thing that has to be kind of factored in. The other thing is they're playing really well. They're really confident. They have a great style of rugby. They're a lovely team to watch. They really, really are. But you wonder how much of that they can do without the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about it today. We played them in the semi-final, I think, in the RDS the year we played Ulster.
Yeah.
I think it was Richie Gray's going away party. I remember him coming around to the crowd afterwards. And then we played them in the final.
15.
The following year, 14.
14, sorry, 14.
13 with Ulster and 14. We beat them in the final.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've ever lost a knockout game to them. Or we don't lose very often in the Heineken Cup either to them. I'm sure we must have lost once in one of their grounds over the last.
Firhill.
Hewenden, I think we won as well.
I think we did. We win in Hewenden?
Have we ever lost?
It's hard to remember. We were sober for that one. And we
in a knockout or Heineken Cup
beat
game.
them in Scottstown. It's hard to know.
They gave us a serious going in the one in 2014. We were lucky to come out on top. They nearly did. I think they beat us in the league for the first time in the RDS that season, and they had their tails up. But yeah, they've got. It's like when Munster come to town, you know. They play us so regularly that they know what they're getting. And it's a bit of a derby game in that way because we play them so often. I know they're in the other conference for the last couple of years, but previous to that, we've played them a lot. We've met them in Europe. So they'll know what's coming. They won't be. They'll have the moment, or they'll have the what's the word I'm looking for? They'll have the motivation to give us a good slap. You know, like we had. I keep referring back to it in 2009 in Grove Park. They'll have that kind of determination in there, and if it's the right day, they'll spread us all over the field.
And we played them relatively recently. Now, we didn't have any skin in the game.
Yeah, and they beat us.
But they beat us
for the second time.
Worked their arses off to do so.
So you heard Van Gran, what he said about that game?
No, I didn't know. No.
Well, he mentioned it that if we had have beaten Glasgow, then Munster would have won the conference.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, he caught delusionalism.
Did you have that world's smallest violin again ready for a second? Yeah. Yeah, we're really sad about that.
But it is the two best teams in the conference. I just was looking at the tables. Obviously they both finished top of their respective conferences. Mm-hmm. Glasgow, slightly better record than ours. They won 16 of their 21. We won 15 and drew 1. We did score considerably more tries than them in the.
Did they not get more bonus points than
Well,
us?
they did. They got a shed load, but they
We
scored.
must have scored lots of tries in very few in a short amount
Well,
of
they
games.
scored 83 tries in total. We scored 95.
So we obviously scored 12 tries against somebody, and they scored
Okay.
kind of 5 against everybody.
Yeah. And we have a very similar defensive record. They conceded 48. We conceded 49.
That's a
tries.
nice
Mm.
even kind of.
Very evenly balanced, isn't it?
Mm.
Should be a cracker game.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm not going
I
over.
think it's going to be an absolute.
Like
it's not gonna be
one
a-
thing I forgot to mention in the Munster game was obviously Toner's injury.
Mm.
That he
That's
seemed
gonna have a bearing.
he seemed in a lot of pain going off just before half time. It's quite hilarious actually. I'm sure if you saw it.
Yeah.
Not for him, it wasn't.
Well, not for him. But I don't know. They must have lost the keys or
The Keystone Cops were driving the
Well,
what they call
the
it.
first thing is they tried to support him off, right?
Yeah.
But neither of the two lads under his shoulder came up to his shoulders. So actually, they were weighing him down. Then they decided to bring on the gurney thing.
But
And by
he-
the time they got on, he was like 10 meters or
No,
five
I'd
feet,
say 10 inches.
10 feet from the sideline. So that was a waste of time.
And then
So it was all-
there was a few wags in the terrace that started making a little beep, beep, beep when the thing was going back into its parking spot just beside the medical centre, which I thought was quite good. But it reminded me of, I think it was, I can't remember who Leinster played, but it was back in the depths of time in the early noughties. And I think it was Lyle, a guy prop that played for Leinster called Lyle, was it?
Oh, John Lynn.
John Lynn, sorry. John
Yeah.
Lynn. He broke his...
Line,
John Lynn.
L-Y-N-E,
I
yeah.
think it was him, and he broke his leg. And when they had him on one of those little electric golf caddies, bringing him up, he rolled off it and broke. And obviously he'd broken his leg, but he rolled off it to
And landed on the same
compound
leg.
the
Oh,
injury
no.
even worse.
If you'll pardon the pun.
Compound fracture.
Yeah, so maybe they're reluctant to use it.
So he'll be a huge loss to us anyway. So it does.
And he's out, right?
Yeah, he's out. He's
Oh,
out.
he's definitely out this week.
So
How,
it does-
how bad his injury
So
is.
it's going to play havoc now with especially with all of our injuries in the second row, who are we going to play as our 3 second row? We obviously know 2 of them, but who's going to be our reserve?
Well, Mick Kearney's injured as well, as far as I
Yeah.
know. And
Nobody
he won't get
seems-
to play for
Nobody
Leinster
seems to
again.
know what the status is with Maloney.
Maloney may be okay, and then you're
I thought I saw him on the pitch in Glasgow, didn't I? In a bib, doing warm-ups with the
Glasgow.
lads. Not in Glasgow, sorry, in Newcastle.
I don't know.
I think you did actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I remember that.
But he hasn't been mentioned in dispatches,
No.
so it's hard to know.
So he's probably grand and ready to go.
Yeah, possibly. Or not coming back at all this season and something else wrong.
Who knows?
So, if he's there, he'll be on the bench.
You'd have to think he'd be on the
If he's fit,
bench.
he'll be on the bench.
I mean,
unless they decide to go. I mean, because there's no restrictions in terms of squads and stuff like that.
I
They
could
could go
play
with
anybody.
Dunn.
Yeah, you could go. I was about to say,
I
like,
think
he's-
it's Gallo, don't know.
he's shown a
Final.
lot.
He has, yes.
But exactly, he's too callow for a final.
So, I
You've got to
mean,
think.
what it really does is it comes down to the question is it better to have somebody like having to have, say, Reece Ruddock move into the second row?
I think that's a bit risky for a final.
Sorry, I'm talking about if Maloney's not available. Sorry.
All right.
Sorry. Would you have something like, say, Reece Ruddock moving in? Or would you go with, no matter how inexperienced, that specialist lock on
Possibly,
the bench?
I think they might go for someone who's a specialist player
Yeah.
rather than do a load of shifting around.
Was it
Yeah.
was it himself or Ryan Baird that came on recently and ended up playing a lot more than they had to go on earlier. Can't remember which
I
one
think it
it
might
was.
be him.
I think it was him.
Yeah.
And he played a stormer and he
Did, yeah.
just
Yeah.
had an engine on him that was
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
just
looked like a
going
young
and go-
James Ryan.
He did.
A younger James Ryan.
Yeah.
He did.
Well, the two of them are very, very talented. I mean, if they'd had another half dozen games under their belt, I wouldn't worry about them
No.
at all.
But like we saw, say, Cullen and Lancaster's reluctance to use, say, Hugh O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like have him on the bench by all means, but like really only break glass if necessary.
Well, it's probably Nick McCarthy now for the Pro 12,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though he's gone to Munster. You want your best players, and he probably is ahead of Hugh O'Sullivan. In fairness to Hugh O'Sullivan and Patterson, indeed, behind him. We may or may not be behind him in a season or two. In fairness to them, they're very young, and scrum half is a very complex position. You get the most touches of any player on the field. You've got, everything goes through you. It's, you can hide a little bit in the second row in comparison.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to push in the scrum, you got to jump in the line out, but you can hide a little bit more in open play and lean on rucks and stuff if you're a second row. You can't do that as a scrum half. You have to be at every ruck, and if you're not there,
there's also the element
for even a second, everybody notices.
That Nick McCarthy actually played really, really well when he came on against Munster.
He's a good player.
He's a very good player.
He is a very good player.
I'm actually surprised he's leaving.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, you see, with the two guys who are so young, Gibson Park and McGrath, they are both pretty young. So if you're settling in behind them, you're in for a long, and he's probably, he's younger than him, but he's probably not that much, maybe 3 years younger than him. Whereas the other lads might have a chance of,
Murray's what, 30?
knocking. I'd say the other lads might fancy knocking one of them off their perch eventually. He can get in as a loner, a medical joker for 3 seasons or something, is it? That's what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Again.
Why not?
Yeah, so I was we've got just this phenomenal record in the Pro 14. Like, it's crazy. It's like, as I said, this is our 8th final since they went to the finals
System.
10 seasons ago. So 8 out of 10. We've won 3 and lost 4 of the previous. We've won the competition 5 times and been runners-up a further 5 times since it was started in 2001.
Can imagine if we took it seriously.
I know it's crazy, isn't it? Like Glasgow, they're like there's kind of us, and then there's the Ospreys are I think on 3 wins, the Scarlets on a couple.
I think the Ospreys might be on 4. Munster are on similar. Yeah, I think.
Okay, but Glasgow have won it once. They won it in 2015, and they were runners up then the season previous in 14 against us.
Munster won it in 11, 9. I think they've only 3. Yeah, they won the second one as well.
And 9 wasn't the finals.
No, I know, but just in terms of titles.
Yeah.
He was talking about titles.
Oh, sorry.
Ospreys, I think, have 4, 7, 10 and 12, obviously, against us, and they've won other.
They win one with where Kerry. Well, no, was that Munster won that one? No, didn't they beat Scarlets in one where Kerry back when there was a final at the beginning. Remember at the beginning there was a final as well.
Yeah, well, there was only 2 goals of that, and we won 1 and Munster won.
Did Ospreys beat or was it Neath actually?
Neath, I think.
It was Neath.
Yeah.
Kerry Sweeney kicked a penalty to win it, I think. If
You're right, it was Neath.
Ospreys won in 05 and 07.
And speaking of Ospreys and Scarlets, they played out their match for the playoff.
Got to mention that.
Ospreys won 21-10 against the Scarlets, so they have European rugby next season.
Yeah, and 1 Welsh team, 4 Irish, an Italian and a Scot. Who would have put money on that at the beginning of the season?
I think the departure of Pivac has, unintentionally of course, really
damaged the Scarlets.
taken the edge off Scarlet's season.
And Barkley and Byrne.
They're huge losses. Well,
if Pivac was more tuned in, maybe he would have replaced them.
Yeah, I think the guy that he did replace them got injured, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, they signed a really good Kiwi.
Yeah.
Blade Thompson or something like that. I can't remember. He had some action hero name anyway. And he got injured. He was a very good player.
Max Power.
Yeah, he was something like that. He was like...
Isn't that a porn star?
He was in The Simpsons, Jason.
His name was something like
it was
that.
Something innocent, like The Simpsons.
Well, I suppose we go back to the final in a moment, but we just... Leinster today announced that they have signed 21 players. And I suppose... We kind of knew a lot of the names that were on the list, and there was 7 lads departing. There was Tom Daly, Sean O'Brien, Nick McCarthy, Mick Carney, Ian Nagel, Jack McGrath, and Noel Reid. So we knew those. One name that was glaringly obvious for not being on that list, any list, was Rob Kearney. So we don't know whether presumably he's still negotiating.
Of course.
Talk on News Talk today that he's retiring at the end of the World Cup. There's
that's a possibility.
Whether he's moving abroad, we don't know. But certainly, where it's as thick as mud as the in the press release, we don't know what's happening really.
Well, he said that he's in negotiations with the IRFU,
and they're going slowly. But they're progressing, but slowly. His contract isn't up until after the World Cup. Whether it's the usual thing of the IRFU.
Playing hardball.
Not playing hardball, but only wanting to offer players of a certain age
A 1 year.
a 1 year deal or a series of 1 year deals, but a 1 year deal, and whether it's players of a certain age actually want multi-year deals and the negotiations around that.
Could be.
It could be as simple as that for all we know.
And you get a look at Sean O'Brien and London
I'm
Irish.
sure he
Yeah.
must be
You'd get
looking
him
at
multiple year
O'Brien
deal.
thinking, God, he was on big books there for 3
Yeah.
years,
Yeah,
going to a lesser league.
yeah, very clever. But yeah, no, I mean, look, Rob will do is Rob is a fairly pragmatic guy. He'll do the deal that's best for Rob.
Yeah, of course.
Hopefully.
But the impression I get from what he said publicly is that he wants to stay in Leinster, and if he can do the right deal, he will stay in Leinster. Now, obviously, if there's something that he's going to retire because he's got an injury or he's got some the doctor has said to him, think about retiring, mate. If that's happened, that obviously puts a different complexion on it. But if it's one of those situations where it's a 1 year deal or maybe a 2 in France,
Yeah, but if that were the case, I mean that would be new. That would be new news, as it were, because he has said that he's in negotiations. So we'll see how it all pans out.
Because those negotiations can break down, can't they?
Yeah, well, they
That's
can.
it.
Yes, they can, and they have done in the past. But we'll see how it pans out. I mean, the only thing is, I mean, we did have a ready-made replacement. We don't anymore. So
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of young kids coming up through the academy that are offered full-time gigs or
Yeah.
full contracts. Just rattle through them: Kieran Frawley, Hugo Keenan, Ronan Kelleher, Conor O'Brien, Jimmy O'Brien, Hugh O'Sullivan, and Scott Penny. Like, again, no surprises there.
No,
We kind of
no.
knew that was on the cards, and we've seen all those lads play, and they've been very, very good.
yeah.
Scott Penny is 12. And he's I think he's done 1 year in the academy.
Yeah.
And they went, oh yeah, sign him.
But I guess it's like,
He's young enough to be our grandkid.
but like he's probably
Yeah.
have to get these lads to put pen to paper, otherwise they're afraid whether it's
Some of these lads,
an
some of these
Irish
lads won't actually be able to sign their own contracts. They'll have to get a parent to sign it for them.
a guardian. But like, I'm sure they do have to sign them up before someone, whether it's an English club, a French club, or another Irish club, comes in and sweeps and tries to pick them up.
And when the academy is announced, we can see if we might have a debut of the first Leinster player born in this millennium.
Yeah.
That's threatening to happen now. It's getting fairly close as it is.
Scary, all right.
Yeah.
But the thing, I mean, the guys that you mentioned, all the guys who've been elevated, none of it is a surprise because they've all played a fair amount of rugby, some less, some more. But we've all in the Pro 12 this year, the Pro 14 this year, and some of them have looked outstanding. Conor O'Brien has looked outstanding.
Yeah, excellent.
Scott Penny has looked outstanding.
Conor O'Brien did the full year, 3 years in the academy
Yeah,
now.
but
you know.
he's looked outstanding.
When he came on against Toulouse, he was excellent. Was
Yeah.
it Toulouse or Benetton? Sorry,
Benetton, I think.
Benetton. He scored 2 tries, didn't he?
Yeah. Jimmy O'Brien has done well. Scott Penny looks like, and Frawley looks like he could have significant potential as well.
He's a
Because he looks
monster
like he
boot,
has
isn't
that. Yeah, but he looks like he has that.
Could he do the old Joey Carberry and fill in at full back?
Maybe he could, but he looks like he has that kind of
10, 12,
arrogance,
15.
and I mean that in a good way, that an out half needs. So
That's an Ian Madigan one, isn't it? 10, 12, 15.
yeah,
Scrum half.
Scrum half. Official scrum half to the World Cup
Yeah.
That's right.
team.
until he's actually needed at scrum half, and then we get somebody else quick.
One other guy that again has been well highlighted was Keane Kelleher coming back from
Yeah.
Connacht.
Yeah.
I mean, again, no surprise there. We knew this weeks and weeks ago that he was.
Yeah, I think that was announced around Christmas by Connacht anyway.
Yeah.
So there was no real news except what wasn't on the page.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah. So just turning.
Dave Carney, Fergus McFadden, we hadn't heard of her. They definitely getting.
Well, that's true too. I
offered.
suppose. Yeah, because I suppose there was a little bit
Good
of
to have them
yeah, no,
in the
it's a
locker.
great squad. I mean, geez, one fella that he does get an awful hard time is Dave Carney.
Yeah.
You know, like
He's playing well at the moment.
our friends
Playing
down
very well.
south seem to have taken a dislike to him for whatever reason, and as a result, he seems to be a forgotten man. Whether he was the starter in the World Cup in 15. You know, we
Starter
sort of
in both the Six Nations Championships.
Thought they won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for queuing me up because we have a question actually around on a similar theme, Jason. Dara asks, how hilarious is it that Munster supporters hate James Lowe? Very fucking hilarious.
Makes him even better.
Yeah, but it also pertains to well, they don't hate Dave Carney.
But I think
they don't rate Dave Carney.
They don't rate him, but I think it might stem from when O'Connell came through and kicked him in
the head.
Yeah, he had the
noggin.
gall to allow his head be kicked.
But it was almost like
Damn
as though
cheek.
he was blamed for O'Connell possibly, and then Schmidt at the time was the Leinster coach. He came out kind of saying it was a disgraceful act of thuggery and whatever.
I don't think
No,
Joe
he
Schmidt
didn't. He didn't.
said that. But I mean, Dave Carney, you look at it, and again on Saturday he was excellent. He was really, really good. He's not flash, although he's capable of doing flash things sometimes because he's pretty quick when he gets going.
Yeah.
People don't realise how fast he actually is.
Oh,
He's
he's
a lot
fast.
quicker than
But
Rob.
yeah.
But he's just a guy every week, 7 out of 10, all the time. He's just, and you can rely on him constantly. Look, if we win the league this year, it'll be not necessarily Dave Carney, but it'll be the Dave Carneys who win the league for us. It's not Johnny Sexton, and it's not Devin Toner, it's not James Ryan, it's not Keane Healy. It's Dave Carney and Noel Reid and Brian Byrne and Peter Dooley and all those guys who win the league, because they're the ones who play most of it. And I remember a couple of years ago when we lost one of the years we lost the playoff, and Brian O'Driscoll was really, really annoyed, and he said, I wasn't annoyed because we lost. I was annoyed because I let down the guys who played all through the winter and all through the Six Nations and all through the autumn internationals to put us in a position where we could play in a final. I feel I've let those guys down by not winning the final. And that's...
I'd say the second Ospreys one, maybe.
Yeah, it might have been, yeah. So that's how... It's great having, like we're talking about who'll play on Saturday. We all know who it is. It's going to be the first 15, as it were. But it's not the first 15 that got to the final, if you know what I mean. It's the guys who play all through the season.
Yeah. And like that is, I remember years ago having a conversation with a guy called Michael, Mickey Mack is his name. He was the former president of Leinster. And this is going back about 12 years ago. But like he was saying that like the reason d'etre of Leinster is, while they obviously want to be successful and win European Cups and win the Celtic League as it was back then, they also have to produce young players. And eventually those young players will become more mature players and Irish internationals. So they kind of have this balancing act. It's not all about being the Saracens who only care about producing players for Saracens.
Yeah.
So the Saracens win the European Cup or the Gallagher Premiership. But the Leinster have this kind of dual mandate that they have to produce players for Ireland eventually to become Irish rugby players.
Which pisses off quite a lot of Leinster
It
fans,
does, of
it
course,
appears.
but that's what Leinster's about. It's not a club side exclusively. It does have this
It's also to
remit.
wear two hats.
It has to.
Yeah.
And like that's what those guys, all those guys that O'Brien O'Driscoll was, feeling sorry for letting down. It's those guys that are now probably starring in the team. You know what I mean? Like it's those guys that are. It's probably he was talking about the Devon Toners or the Dave Carneys perhaps.
Yeah,
Do you know what
I agree. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So it's so to go back to Munster fans don't rate Dave Carney. I'm sure
Or
he cries
James Lowe.
or James Lowe. I'm sure Dave Carney cries himself to sleep every night on his big pillow made of metals.
But James Lowe is
Nice one,
again.
Dave.
He's just such. We've said it a few times this season. Like he will put bums on seats.
Oh yeah,
He's just
he's
so-
Showtime.
And you can understand why the Munster fans were kind of getting uppity on him. You can
In fairness,
understand
if he were a Munster player, he'd
Because-
piss me off.
because he's a little bit of the Simon Zebo about him insofar as he kind of likes winding
That's
up the
what
crowd.
always mystified me about Munster. Munster fans would be going on about Jamie Heaslip being a show pony or and then you have Simon Z. Oh no, but Zebo's great. She's great crack. He's wonderful. Like, where's the logic there? You either like players that are good, solid players that don't wear their trousers too low or have funny headphones. Like, you either hate players like that or you don't hate players that just put a red jersey on them and all of a sudden they're great.
I guarantee you, if Jamie Hughes had played for Munster, he'd be the greatest player that ever walked the earth.
He's pretty close anyway, so yeah.
I know.
That's the only thing that didn't.
But they'd have to admit
the only box he didn't tick.
But,
Playing for Munster? No.
Look, it is what it is. I mean, every team has somebody that opposition fans don't like. Every team. When we used to watch Scarlets, Liam Williams used to get my tits something fierce. Really did. And every team has somebody like that. I mean, I'm sure Dragons will develop a number of them now that Dean Ryan is their coach. But that's part and parcel of the partisanship of fandom. You know, usually the guys who are like that are guys who cause your team a lot of damage as well. So,
but one thing that James Lowe will do is he will get crowds in to watch his own team play because, my God, he is exciting when he gets the ball in his hand.
Oh, he's superb, and his work rate is just extraordinary.
He wants the ball. It reminded me of Campese so much. A guy, again, another fella who
divided
his opinion, and even his own teammates hated him. So,
don't think that's the case with James, though.
Not sure, but
everybody loves him.
Exactly,
except Munster fans.
Yeah, but like he, I remember, and you never saw it from a Northern Hemisphere rugby player, but he was coming in off his wing and coming in between the first centre and the out half, demanding the ball. And James Lowe is like that as well, and he wants the ball. You
saw it there in that for that first try. First thing he does is make a break down the line. Then he's in rucking. He's involved in it 2 or 3 times, not just the fancy stuff, doing the hard work as well. He's a hell of a rucker actually. You see him there if he comes into rucks, and if he can't hit the ruck, he makes the pass away from the ruck. He's always anytime the ball is over that kind of half side of his pitch, he's involved.
But in fairness, he does have it all. He has the bit of Polynesian that he has the Polynesian sidestep where he can run over you. He's got pace. He can run around you. He's got skills. He can offload. He can do all that good shit. And he's also a big unit that can hit rucks, as you say.
But you saw what he did, like to Healy. Like he ran at him.
Yeah.
And he ran at him, and he kind of possibly led with his elbow even, but like he certainly fended off with his forearm. Yeah. But he knocked him back on his backside, and I think he made his own look. You know what I mean?
Haley saw him come towards him, and it didn't need a huge amount of fending.
That's true.
Do you have any more questions, Dave?
We do, Jason. We
Excellent.
do. We have one from Brian Hughes. Who asks, how lucky are we that we got a trio of front rowers like Tyke, Sean and Keane? May we never take them for granted, and I completely agree with that, but we talked about Keane getting a new contract. Maybe we should talk about Keane a bit more.
Yeah.
He's been rewarded with a new central contract, much deserved. When you consider how far he's travelled.
And his age.
You
like they're kind of, I don't know what, I think he's about 31, is he?
31 or 32.
Would be, yeah.
What's Rob Kearney? 33, would it be?
33, yeah.
So there's not much of a difference in it, but they've given him a deal up until 21.
Yeah.
So that's
but for a prop, that's not that old. Like a 33-year-old prop is. I know he's high mileage though.
But and also he couldn't make a fist a couple of seasons ago.
So you talk about that.
He was on the verge.
That journey.
He's made a fist of it since though.
When you consider that the last document he was going to sign from the IRFU was his insurance papers.
Correct.
Yeah.
And now he's getting it's a huge, and he's back playing now, as well as he ever played.
Yeah.
He's back to full.
Big time.
The full-on 100% Keane Healy experience. That's what you're getting.
I noticed in the blurb today that he actually made his debut against the Border Reivers back in 2007. Like, they finished in 2007, so that's something he's going to be able to tell his grandchildren. This team you never heard of. Nobody ever heard of them, but they used to play in the Celtic League.
His final game that was?
It was the current Scottish coaches.
And Reggie Corrigan's final game.
Actually, was it the current? Yeah, it was the current.
And you know who else made his debut against the Border Reivers? Though not necessarily in that game.
Toner.
Johnny Sexton.
Did he?
Yeah, he came on for Felipe.
Very interesting. I think pretty sure it was Gregor Townsend's last game, as well. He had come. Yeah, maybe I imagine.
It's one of the great questions actually for Scottish rugby, and so that's what we're going into now. But how come Scotland have never been able to get a professional team in what is the absolute hotbed of Scottish rugby in the Borders? In that kind of
they can't agree.
Gala Shields, Kelso area.
Because they can't agree on.
They can't agree, yeah, possibly. But it is. I mean, it is one of the things. I mean, it is the absolute cradle of Scottish rugby.
But like, maybe we're just lucky, and we managed to do it from what we would see as the cradle of Irish rugby. Might have been down in Limerick a number of years ago with, all the AIL success, and then you had. What's your man's name? Keane, was it? Who is Frank Keane? Who was patron of Gary Owen?
Yeah.
Who wanted Gary Owen to become the standard bearer of Irish rugby and
Europe.
enter into the European competition.
Sounds silly now, but
It does sound silly, but like if you think
At
about
the
it, say,
time it-
the Welsh are in disarray. You know, where you would say that sort of M4 is this corridor, where
Yeah.
there's all these teams are in the west or southwest of Wales.
the south of Wales,
South
I'd
of
say.
Wales, all along there, and there's probably hundreds of rugby clubs all along there, made up into bigger clubs, into feeder clubs, and then they still can't agree on what their best option is, and then you have the hard bed of Scottish rugby down the borders, and again there's a team in Glasgow, and there's a team in Edinburgh. I wouldn't say there was. Traditionally, Glasgow was a hotbed of rugby in Scotland, whereas the borders certainly were.
Yeah, I mean,
Big population,
Like you say,
though.
we did kind of get lucky in a way that when rugby started in Ireland, certainly started to get organised in Ireland in the 1870s, we had historically a geographical setup in place that suited us, not unlike the New Zealand setup, and we just used that, and it turns out that for us, for professional rugby, it's the right setup. So we got lucky.
Yeah.
Scotland had inter-districts, but it was never as formalised.
It's not what people identify with.
No, it's not. No.
And people actually do identify
Yeah.
with being from Leinster or being from Connacht or Munster.
From Munster, yeah, because there's also there's that whole GAA
it's-
thing as well. I mean, that's the honest-
GAA and also
mean,
administrative.
when-
There's loads of levels of.
when you're if you're into sport, you're kind of into a provincial based competition anyway.
Yeah.
Because most competitions in Ireland are,
And most
are
sports,
provincial based.
whether
Yeah,
it's
sports
tennis,
are-
cricket,
yeah. The
rugby, football.
soccer, it's all
Yeah.
provincial based. So we had that structure, and it suited us, and we were lucky that the two things collided. Other Wales obviously didn't have regions came in 2003, and there's a PhD thesis in that somewhere.
A
Scotland
lot of
had-
arguments in it anyway.
yeah, Scotland had their inter-district competition, which was never taken as seriously, and the club was always the main unit of identity in Scotland as well as it was in Wales. So I mean, we just got lucky. But what were we talking about that brought us onto this?
God knows.
God knows.
Yeah.
We're
Just a
rambling.
great ramble.
Yeah, it was a great ramble. But so yeah. Yeah, and Brian goes on to say that the try they scored, which is true, was basically a story itself of the difference between us and Munster. Possibly, I mean, it was the try that the front row scored.
Yeah.
It was just the interchangeable execution of skills.
Go back 10 years and it was only New Zealand players that could do that.
Yeah.
Forwards, I mean, New Zealand front rowers could do that 10 years ago. Nobody else could.
We have another question from with a Caledonian air. Rainy Angel Annie asks, why was Leo Cullen such an idiot in his post-match interview last Saturday? Serious
I
question.
was hoping we'd get to avoid
I
that.
heard that on air when I came home. I watched the replay of the
Yeah.
match, and I was quite surprised that someone
Yeah.
as
It was.
quite canny as Leo would come
Yeah.
out and say something quite crass like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like to make the joke in general. That like, I like to rob the joke. It's actually a Darrow Breen joke, and he says when people ask him what religion he is, he says he's an ethnic Catholic. He doesn't believe in God, but he still hates Rangers. So there's an element of that to it. Look, the Old Firm rivalry is toxic. It really is. And it's
Yeah.
not something I really want
To identify with.
not coming into sport, but trying to. I don't want us trying to piggyback on that. To be honest with you.
I think it was just a stupid remark. And
Yeah, I don't think
He's
Leo meant
probably
anything
brought
by it. I think
back
it was
from
just. I think it was a joke he thought was good at the time.
and didn't think it through.
Yeah.
But yeah, ill chosen.
Well, he got
words,
slapped
but-
down from one of the ultimate Celts today.
Who's that?
One of the Lisbon Lions.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
His son played rugby for Glasgow. So he was like, and the Lisbon Lions are like, the gods of Glasgow. Even Rangers fans
Have some respect.
respect and admire them. So yeah, that was the I suppose the Irish equivalent of a slap of the crozier.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit of a silly comment, and
It was.
I just wish it would go away, kind of thing. 'cause,
Yeah, yeah.
That's the way I feel about it. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, most soccer fans who are interested in Glasgow are going to be looking on the other side of the city in Hampden Park because the Scottish Cup final's on anyway. So,
Yeah.
Any other questions there?
any other questions? That's a very good question. in itself. We had Brian, we had Ray, and by the way, we love hearing questions from people across the sea, no matter where it is. So,
Except if you're Ranger fans.
no.
I'm joking.
No, I'm quite happy to hear from people who've stolen.
Jason on Blues Talk had a very ill-advised comment, and
he's getting toxic.
he's toxic.
Yeah.
We'd like to distance ourselves from that remark.
We've been trying to distance ourselves from Jason for years, but he keeps being too quick for us.
I know what you
which
mean.
isn't saying very much. But no, that's the end of the questions. But yeah, so if you're Scottish or Welsh or English or French or Azerbaijani, get in touch.
Indeed.
Please.
Predictions, lads.
Predictions.
Prediction before we go.
The whole Google Huawei thing will be sorted by the end of June.
Excellent.
Okay, well, I will go with the bookies. Leinster by 3. I have a feeling we're going to do them, but I quite often get that feeling, and we don't. So I'd say if you played the game 10 times, it might be
knackered.
You'd be knackered. You wouldn't have. You'd be bollocks. Well, I'd say if you played the game 10 times, that Glasgow would win 3.72 of them. And I'm hoping that it's going to be one of the other 6 point whatever the hell is left games that we do. We should have too much when we have the experience. We've got a pretty good team. We should have a fractionally better bench than we did against Saracens. And the old Team A, Team B, Team C thing, where Team A beats Team B and you expect them to beat, you expect things to go with, and it never does, So the fact that they've beaten that Saracens have beaten them 3 times doesn't really, by more than they beat us, doesn't
Ulster
really
beat
do
us
it.
though up in Ravenhill.
Ulster beat us in Ravenhill. There's another one there's another circle that we could upset. So I'm saying us by 3, in an entertaining game.
I'd go along with that. I would suggest, and for all the reasons you said it, I'd suggest that. I also predict that Doggerel by Fontaine's DC and the new Lazarus Soul album will sweep all the awards this year. Sorry.
Fair enough.
Well, I think just like I agree with what you said, lads. I think the only
You're a big Fontaine's DC fan as well, eh?
excellent, they're excellent. But the only thing I would say is that on the other side of the equation is that Glasgow are playing at home. It's a huge occasion for them. It's probably the biggest rugby match in the city's history.
As I said, they have the motivation
and
there.
I think that might actually be
biggest club rugby match. I mean, obviously international games have been played in Hamburg.
sure, but playing for the club and trying to build, like they've done a magnificent job in the 10 or so or 15 years since we went to Hewenden, and there was 1,400 people and probably 500 of those were Leinster fans, no bar open. Very.
I'm not sure Glasgow get enough credit for that, actually, about the way they've come on.
It was quite an amateur
Yeah.
setup, that they were in hock to the local club, who the local club didn't want non-members to gain access to the clubhouse. It was a disaster, whereas this should have been a showcase of. And I remember being in a taxi going out to the match, and the taxi man was kind of scratching his head, didn't have a clue that this match was on, whereas in Dublin it's a big deal. The European Cup matches, or most of the other places that I'd been to, it was there was a
buzz.
It was a buzz going around. It was this guy just hardly even knew where I was, and how that's kind of changed in the and I was over at you were there as well, John, over in the in Scottstown for our game in the European Cup a couple of seasons ago, and the difference. Stadium was full, great atmosphere.
Good fans too.
Great fans, nice little sort of kind of a hall off in a corner
That's
that
right,
they've made into their kind of like their line out. Nice little atmosphere there, and they've made a great little home for themselves, and it's possibly getting a bit small for them now. But in reality, it's probably just the right size. So far as they can always put up the sold out and make that exclusivity out of it. But the fact is that there's going to be 20 or 30 or 40,000 people in Celtic Park on the weekend. It's brilliant for them, and I think that might just be the deciding factor.
So are you going to put your cock on the block, Jason, and give us a score?
I'll go 19-17 to Glasgow.
Okay.
Oh, controversial.
Could happen.
Well, let's just hope it'll be paradise for us.
Hope so. But anyway, boys, as ever, thanks a million, and thanks so much for watching. Cheers.